I need to start streaming, right? I suppose. It's live. I'm just that popular, Russell. What can I say? Oh my goodness. We'll give it like 5 minutes as per usual, for people to join. But in the meantime, let's just get some yield the classic. Oh, come on. Um oh, hello there. Hello, Samuel. Oh my goodness. We have a maid and then a god. There you go. How was everyone's Halloweens? Did you get to do anything? I didn't. That's what I did. Oh, that's good. Did you have any candy? No. I didn't either. But I'm making sure to do that this weekend. It's very important to me. I do know what you did. I'm very aware of what you did. But you have great execution. So well done. I applaud you. What do you think? Thank you. I actually made this out of a paper plate because like I literally there was like one of the plates in the lab and I just cut it up and I used some like of our Sharpies and marker dry erasers and whatnot. I think it looks pretty well. Hopefully you can't tell at a distance. Oh, I'll have to send out a reminder announcement just in case. Not an I6R. Okay. How was last week? Oh, really? How come? Oh, oh, the double whammy of exams or midterms? Ooh, yeah, yeah, I feel that. Oh my gosh, you're going through all of it. Yeah, that was me. I think, yeah, 2 years ago now. I don't envy you. All I can say is past 330 and 351, it gets less painful generally, or maybe more painful. Depends how hard you push yourself. Because I mean, you get to choose your pain instead of being forced to take pain, which I say is better. Um, Alrighty. Well, we can get started. Wait for people to pull up or like kind of trickle, go through some news while we wait for people to trickle in. Alrighty. Welcome everybody to week 10, something like that. Unfortunately, Halloween was yesterday, and not today. Would have made it more festive, but I don't care. Hence, I decided to, pull up in the drip, as the kids say. I could say, wait, what's the line? I'm Loki from Asgard. I'm burdened with glorious purpose. I don't know, something like that. Whatever. Um, We can begin with some headlines. Most importantly, especially if any of you have the drive to do a hackathon, or you want to like kind of get uh, meet some other people from around the country, around the world in VR. Guess what? Reality Hack um, uh, signups are now open. You should apply, and you should apply as soon as possible because the spots are kind of filling up fast. And I'm not supposed to say this, but I'll go off the air for a second. Just sorry guys, the audio cut out. Very unfortunate. Um, so sad. Anyways, I can't recommend this experience enough. It was a lot an opportunity where I met a lot of my closest friends. There's tons of Red Bull. There's parties. There's equipment, like basically all the industry people come in. There's Meta, there's Qualcomm. There's going to be a focus on like Vision Pro stuff this year. I can't recommend this highly enough. You should definitely apply. Takes like a few minutes, and because it could like really could change your life, baby. It changed Jack's life. But yeah, definitely apply this to this as soon as possible. All right, Nintendo. Remember the Labo? That that the basically the Google Cardboard of the Nintendo Switch. Well, guess what? They're gonna do it again. Why? I don't know. But Nintendo is filing some patents to basically, I think, maybe for the new generation of Switch or whatever, they're basically doing it again. Um, uh, because apparently the next Switch is going to be expected within this year or like next fiscal year, something like that. And I guess the previous Labo won't be compatible, so they're going to bring, a new version to the new Labo of to the new Switch. So I don't know what that will look like. It'd probably be the same thing, maybe. I hope that like it's a little bit more capable this time of like maybe playing a bit more VR games than just like the one Nintendo Labo game. But who knows? Maybe it'll be more interesting, maybe not. I don't know. What else? Disney is making a new Office of Technology Enablement. Quite the title. But basically, they are going to be focusing on developing tech for and applications for AI and XR devices. AI, I have no idea what that means. I don't know if they're going to make like Buzz Lightyear Chat GPT or something like that, where you can like have Buzz like explain to you the universe or something like that. But Disney is very keen with Apple on like pioneering like the XR space. They were part of the Vision Pro announcement where they sort of like gave off this like whimsical like fantasy like of what could be of like you put on your Vision Pro and then Disney like has like the whole Magic Kingdom on your desk or something like that, and they have all these experiences. We also met a few months ago in ICXR with an XR engineer from Disney who was like working on different technologies like I think it was like GLT or no Universal Scene Descriptor. It basically is like a tech to like make widely compatible 3D scenes for like a variety of different applications in like simple terms. But basically, all that is to say that they are very much working on this, and hopefully, over the next coming years, when all of you graduate and start looking for careers, you can end up here. Be pretty cool. 100 plus employees, like that could be you. What else? Oh yeah, this is interesting. I don't know if any of you saw on Twitter or social media this week, but Northwestern was some science team at Northwestern was like, guys, we have mice and we have VR. What if we combine them? And as a result, you get this sort of humorous VR mice contraption or mouse contraption where you kind of have mice explore virtual reality. I'm guessing I'm not sure what exactly the objective of the study is. Um, oh, apparently, so it's to help like observe their brain activity while like the animals think they're kind of in the real world. But you end up getting something like this. I don't know if you saw this, but I look where technology has brought us. The the future is now. Um, so I mean, this is interesting, humorous if not, but hopefully, we can actually put some application to this soon so that we don't keep like just, putting these poor mice in these VR contraptions and whatnot. We shall see. Anyways, big screen. Does anyone know what big screen is? See of you? So not only so a lot of the reason why they're in like the headlines nowadays is that they make their virtual reality headset that's super small and whatnot. But we have to remember that before the headset existed, they are a software company that makes an app called Big Screen, as the name implies, that allows you to watch content with your friends. And one of its features was that you could take your PC or your computer, whatever, you could share your screen basically, and then you could gather all of your friends to a virtual theater and watch whatever. Great. But the problem is what if you just have one of these? You have a Quest, you don't have a PC, just a Quest. Well, you can't really use a browser anymore because there's no real good way to embed a browser into like the app. And so what do they do? They are now offering a subscription service apparently where you can just use some browser in the cloud, and you can watch whatever. But the benefit is you can now get this portable like VR social experience per se, where you just can use a browser on some virtual machine in the cloud, and you can watch whatever. How much you trust that virtual machine or that cloud browser? I don't know. I certainly wouldn't like log into my bank account on this thing, but at least to watch some, maybe if you have some like totally legal anime site that you can watch, free anime on, something like that. Yeah, this would work. Uh, that's that. Um, anybody play Gorilla Tag slash have a PSVR 2? Wow. Well, I don't blame you. But if you maybe find yourself fitting into either of those categories in the future, Gorilla Tag is coming to PSVR 2. This is a good sign. This means that like, we're getting games on more platforms, no exclusives, that kind of thing. It's more accessible. But oh boy, we're certainly building the avalanche of kids running around and breaking TVs and whatnot while with Gorilla Tag and making that more accessible. My friend's girlfriend's brother broke his hand because he was playing Gorilla Tag, and then like he was against like a fireplace, and he went to like leap forward, and it was just like bam, like right into the mantle. So we'll see how many ER injuries this causes, but ho hopefully not that many, and hopefully it's gonna be more fun than not. Um, Meta is like shush, but they are increasing the maximum GPU clock speed. This is a kind of frequent pattern for Meta. Like once they kind of release their devices, they'll try to later on see if they can squeeze any more performance out of it. I believe previously they did that with the Quest 2. But what this means for developers is that like, if you have any sort of high fidelity experiences, like that new Batman game that came to Quest, that you kind of want to maybe perform a little bit better, it certainly doesn't hurt to, have Meta make the processor run a bit faster, like let it run for a bit hotter, a bit longer, whatever, to give that extra bit of performance. I don't think it's like leaps and bounds faster. Yeah, you're getting like maybe 50 extra megahertz. Um, so, marginal things, marginal benefits, but the fact that they can find ways to squeeze every bit of performance out of these expensive headsets that you buy, if you pay for the headset, you're going to use the whole headset, right? So that's lovely. Oh, I just wanted to say that the reviews of like the Quest 3S are start. No, Obama did not review the Quest 3S. Um, okay, huh? It would just that would be quite something, wouldn't it? But they're trying to get into reviewers and consumers' hands. And then the thing I learned from this interview, actually, or this review, is that apparently the Quest 3S includes like a little IR light on the front of it that lets you actually use hand tracking in the dark better than the Quest 3. So that's something I didn't know. Because Quest 3, I think, relies primarily on cameras to the hand tracking. So you can imagine when it gets dark, you lose that kind of data. But because these cameras can see in like the IR kind of frequency or outside of like the normal visual spectrum or whatever that we can, all humans can see, having that kind of floodlight in the dark that is invisible to humans, but very visible to the headset, makes hand tracking work better. So hopefully they bring this to a future Quest, maybe a Quest 4 or something like that. But it's kind of a fun fact that I learned about. Um, the Apple Vision Pro is coming to the United Arab Emirates and South Korea. Does anybody have any relatives in the United Arab Emirates or South Korea? Congratulations. Tell them to buy a Vision Pro. Well, so this is obviously good news. It means that Apple is, continuing to do the rollout to Vision Pro to more regions across the globe. I'm currently unaware off the top of my head of like how far Meta has expanded across the globe, like where you can buy a Quest versus a Vision Pro. But the fact that Apple's rolling it out to more and more countries, that's always a good thing. This is also kind of interesting to take in the light of like the news last week where Apple was apparently had cut production of the Vision Pro, either temporarily or in hopes that they'll make a cheaper variant soon. But maybe they just have a lot of surplus. Who knows? But at the very least, more people get their hands on the technology, more ideas, more developers, etc. But remember that Tim Cook also said that this wasn't supposed to be a mass market product. He literally said in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, I think a few weeks ago, that it was supposed to be for like enthusiast people. So we'll see how that kind of plays out. Um, I have good and bad news. The good news is that Reality Lab revenue is going up. They're making more money, which means that they have more of a reason to stay around, which is good because we want them to kind of continually invest in VR and whatnot. Um, and this is kind of like after a criticism that like they're pouring all this money to Reality Lab and it's not turning profit. They're slowly getting back there. Apparently, they had their most amount of profit in 2021, 2022 when the Quest 2 was released, and then they kind of fell off for a bit. But now they're kind of regaining some steam, and we'll see how the Quest 3S contributes to that. But it's always good to know that like they're kind of doing better. Um, the only so like you can see that like the revenue is like kind of trending upwards a bit. The only problem is that like well, if you kind of if you look at the revenue in comparison to the cost, it still costs way more to run it than they do take in money, which is kind of unfortunate. But at the very least, it's a step towards profits, and then profits aren't everything, of course, but they certainly will help advance the industry in the future. Um, Steam. Oh, this is a good one. For any of you you can take your hand tracking on your Quest and you can basically port it over to your PC to incorporate PC on any hand tracking titles you may have. And this is actually really nice because while they aren't the first to do this, Virtual Desktop already had this feature a few weeks ago, and you could do that. Virtual Desktop costs money; it costs $15, something like that, and Steam Link is free. So, it's a win for people who, maybe don't like have a ton of disposable income to spend on like VR utilities or games or whatnot. You can just download Steam Link. You can do hand tracking, or you can enable hand tracking, and you could use that for both, I know, games or your development or whatnot, and it makes it more accessible, which is always a good thing. Uh, and more Vision Pro news because we can't have enough. Safari on Vision OS is now getting support for embedded spatial photos and videos. What does that mean? Well, in the Vision Pro right now, if you have a photo that you want to make 3D, you want to view in 3D, you have to basically take the photo, open it in the Photos app, and then like hit a little button that basically will run through, scan it, and like figure out how to make it 3D, and then you see it in 3D. But the problem with this is that like you have to download that photo and you have to view it in 3D. So you have to add it to your photos library in order to appreciate the 3D content, which obviously, that's not really ideal long term. Do you want a website where you're trying to do like a house tour, a building tour, or whatever, and you want to show off 3D photos? Do you want your user to go download those photos every single time? No, you're going to lose so many people that way. with this update coming over like the next few months, you can directly embed those 3D photos in websites. So this will perhaps in the future, I'm sure Meta will follow suit in some way or another, but this will enable a new era of like spatial website content per se, where you can embed 3D photos in a nice like way, and that's way easier on developers, and ensures more people actually see the 3D content, and we kind of incentivize people to make more 3D photo and video content, which would be pretty cool. Um, and then this is basically the same thing, just showing like a little tweet of that. So we'll kind of skip over it. And last but not least, um, that the Vision Pro is probably going to akin to the Meta Quest is going to get like a guest control mode where you can use your phone to like guide people through an experience. So currently on the Meta Quest, if somebody's trying out your virtual reality headset, you can actually see what they're doing in the app by casting. But you can also have like you have a few buttons at your disposal to either recenter them. You can launch a game. You can reset their view, whatever. And it makes it way easier to demo to people because you don't have to be like, actually, can you hold down the button on the controller and then can you reset the boundary and like, huh? Yeah. So you can do that. You can do that now. And obviously, the Vision Pro is suffering from this problem right now because I have to be like, especially when it first came out. Um, to get to this control center, you have to look towards the top of your vision and then wait for the little circle to appear and then pinch and then like it'll come back down and like explaining that to people is like, can you please look to the top and like look now with your head, with your like a lot of explaining. And tools like this will allow us to sort of remotely control the experience and make it a bit more easy for people to like actually get good, worthwhile Vision Pro demos. So that would be pretty cool. Um, but yeah, that's kind of, I think, the big news for this week. But for the people who just came in, like I will just underscore this one again. Once again, Reality Hack is open. Please apply for that. It'll be if you can get to Boston in January, you absolutely should. I'm what's the academic calendar like for maybe? Okay, so it barely overlaps, but like it's good. Yeah, it's good. We go over awards and syllabus. I was like it's easier this year because it's just the Monday and that's the final day anyways. So it's awards you can skip if you really have to, but you should do that. Samuel, you should go back. Oh yeah, because I went with Samuel last year and we won. Remember that? I kind of forgot, but yeah, don't worry. But it's okay. It'll be fun. All right. Without further ado, we can begin our workshop. Where once I find where I put the workshop. Uh, where did I put it? I put it somewhere. Um, all right. There you go. Okay. Welcome to Intro to Virtual Reality with Unity. Very fun project if you ever want to like learn how to use virtual reality, build your own virtual reality games and experiences. You probably want to know the basics of this. Um, a lot of what I show off and demo is going to be a lot of boilerplate. That is a lot of steps that I don't really expect you to memorize because it's more like how you install the damn thing. But what I'm going to try to focus on first is more of the fundamentals of how you build a virtual reality experience and how you do it in Unity. And then we're going to try to build one ourselves. Actually, as it turns out, it's really hard to wear a VR headset with these things. So I'm going to, I either need a guess or something like that. But, uh, okay. We do have a link if you want to follow along. I don't know if it still works. Let's see. Oh, it does still work. Okay. I'll kind of leave this up for a second, but you can download that and then you can follow along with the project. You won't need to for this workshop, I think, to get something out of it, but that option is available. So I'll kind of leave it up for a few seconds. And if anybody else needs it, just let me know and I'll go show it up again. So to begin, kind of recapping what is virtual reality and what is it for. Quite basically, virtual reality is when you want to bring somebody into a different environment, right? You have, some virtual space that you want to exhibit, like a museum or like some space world, or you have some game like fighter jets or with VTOL or whatever, or Beat Saber, what have you. You basically want to transport somebody into a new space. And so for that, you're going to be using a virtual reality headset because you want to basically completely close off their real world view and bring them something new. And we've seen this primarily being very strong for games because it makes sense. Games require complete replacement of the real world to bring you to some virtual space. And we've also seen it useful as well for like kind of toury content or like visiting virtual places or like real world scans of places. Google Earth VR is a pretty good example of that. And well, here's a few games. I made this a few years ago, so like maybe it's not completely up to date, but basically, you know, if you ever heard any of them, those are VR games. So perhaps not a surprise. I think this is the trailer for Bone Lab or Works. But basically, this sort of shows what's possible in a virtual reality game when you sort of really understand the fundamentals of like VR design, and you make your own. You do a lot of work. Boneworks or Bone Lab for the unaware is this basically physics puzzle game where you're trying to traverse this like kind of dystopian warehouse type thing or like whatever, and it's basically you can pick up and interact with anything and you can use it to help solve puzzles. So huge emphasis on physics and climbing things. Maybe not for the faint of heart because it's a very intense experience. You do a lot of moving, which can make people a little bit sick, but it's basically one of the epitomes of like a VR game right now and like what you can do with it. I think you really like it, Russell, right? It's your favorite game? Yeah, there you go. Where did I put the slides? Oh, here you go. And basically the rest of this is you can show off a bunch of virtual experience, but let's get into some terminology. So one of the things that you'll kind of want to keep in mind when you're doing virtual reality development is the notion of inside out versus outside in tracking. Basically, this will dictate how, when you have a virtual reality headset, how does it actually know where your hands are? How does it actually know where your controllers are? How does it know where you are? Because it's not always clear how that's going to be the case. And there's basically two systems, inside out and outside in. Inside out tracking is probably today the most popular. You have something like a Quest, and you have cameras on it, and basically you observe your environment around you to see like where you are located and like where your controllers are. But there's a classic problem with that, as I will demonstrate. Can somebody tell me what the issue is if I'm playing a game like archery and I do this? Right. And so you lose line of sight with the cameras, and basically you have to guess, what your player is going to be doing. And in most cases, that's not really an issue because most games or experiences are in front of you, right? You most of the time, you work with things that you have a visual line of sight with your hands, you're doing something. But particularly for any games like archery, going over the back is a kind of a problem. And so you basically have to either just loosely guess that they are pulling like an arrow from the right spot, or, you know, yeah, Beat Saber 2. Like, if you're like going out of view, or like, I don't know how, I think the tracking frequency is still pretty good on inside out tracking. So it, like, that is to say, like, it can accurately track your motion pretty fast, but just a little considerations. And we have outside in tracking, which is basically you have what are called base stations or other external devices at the corners of the rooms. We kind of discussed that in like a lab meet a few weeks ago, but the source of tracking is external. So as long as you're within like the range of like the base stations at the corners of the room, you'll have tracking, and you can do your like over the back reaching for archery because you're still in line of sight with the base station. Obviously, the problem with this is that base stations require you to actually install like put something up on the wall in your room. It's less portable. It ticks off your mom. She doesn't know that I installed it in her basement. That's okay. But it's kind of inside out is going to be the kind of the future. It's vastly winning because a lot of people have Quests way more so than actual PCVR headsets. So outside in still has a purpose for sure because that's how like the big screen beyond my favorite VR headset works. So it's not going anywhere, but it's definitely secondary at this point. And then we have standalone versus tethered experiences. Standalone experiences are probably what the majority of you, if you ever go into building XR applications in your careers, you're going to be building standalone experiences. What that means is that they can run solely and independently on the Quest without any external equipment. And nowadays, if you are trying to build a VR app or an XR app or whatever, you basically have to make a standalone application. Because if you actually want to kind of stay afloat and make sure that people buy your game or your app or whatever, the money's in Quest. So if you don't, you're basically shooting yourself in the foot. Asterisks. There are scenarios where that doesn't have to be the case, but generally, you want to be building standalone experiences that are compatible. If, however, you want something that's a bit more high fidelity, a bit more featureful, for example, like on VR chat on the desktop, because you have the extra oomph of a desktop, you can generally do a lot more things. You can load in higher texture, quality textures, avatars, whatever. Then you need to switch to a tethered experience, which is basically you have some sort of PC in the corner of your room that you're like streaming PC from, or sorry, VR from to run your like high fidelity applications. VTOL VR is another example of this. Bone Lab and Boneworks was an example of this until they made standalone versions. But basically, you're sacrificing portability once again. You have to get a graphics or graphically capable computer, gaming computer, whatever. But you get some extra. It looks nicer. Maybe you have more fun. Um, I actually didn't make this slide, but basically, there's tons of other ways you can like sort of augment the VR experience. There's something called virtual reality, Vive trackers, which are basically you can affix them to your feet, your hip, or whatever, and then you can get a more accurate pose of your body. So normally, with the headset and controllers, you just know where your head and hands are. But with like, if you have some on your feet, on your hip, you can get the full pose. I can do the low key gluteus purposing a bit more and whatnot. And there's also tons of other tech that you can think about incorporating your thing and your games. Eye and face tracking are big ones. So if you ever want to make a more of a social experience, you want to actually be able to convey on an avatar what people are actually looking at or like what facial expression they're making. That's fun stuff to incorporate. And then there's also like a really fun category called haptic vests, and we have some in the lab upstairs. If you ever wanted to come by and try it out, where basically you put on this vest, like the one in the slide, and then you can actually feel vibrations or impact when like you get hit by like a punch or a bullet or whatever. All different things you can kind of go. You can blend into a virtual reality experience. We're we're not going to cover that into today's workshop because we're going to be going pretty basic, but just something to mention. And alas, we bring to we're brought to the question: when I'm making a virtual reality experience, why Unity? Why a game engine in general? You know, it's big, it's complicated. Uh, when I make games, so my like like when I just make like little simple computer games, like in a terminal or in a browser, or whatever, I don't need all this stuff. I can just directly make my tic-tac-toe game or whatever in a terminal. No need for fancy game engines. So why do we do Unity? Well, Unity helps us with a lot of the math you'll need for a 3D application. To build something for VR is a huge undertaking because there's a lot of 3D math involved. Matrices, cross products, dot products, distortion correction, all of that. Unity or any other game engine in general will just basically do all that work for you. So even though you're paying sort of like your time, you're kind of, succumbing to Unity and like any sort of policies they make, like what they did a few years ago when they decided to randomly charge everybody for runtime installation fee, but that's beside the point. It does do a lot of the hard work for you, so you can focus on building your gamer experience, not doing the math, generally. Unity also has more platform support. They're actually very good at this, especially for VR or in the VR space. If you want to build something like I want to, like a little like mini virtual reality game or whatever, you probably don't want to have to worry about supporting a gazillion different VR headsets. You just want to build it once and have it run on a variety of different platforms without really thinking about it. And Unity generally lets you do this. You can theoretically, in theory, it's not always done in practice, but you can theoretically make an experience that runs on the Quest and something like the Vision Pro or like a PC headset. And that's why Unity kind of is helpful in that regard. And lastly, like I said, because a lot of VR headsets, the lenses, they actually have to distort the image. That is like what goes on screen kind of has to get like bent or bulged or whatever to like actually go through the lens properly. More math for that. But guess what? Unity takes care of that for you. You don't got to worry. Um, but let's actually kind of start getting into how we do that in Unity for now. So a quick refresher, our three golden building blocks of any Unity game are a scene, a game object, and components. Can anybody tell me what a scene is? Just off the top of your mind. Or I can go over it. I don't hear. Yes. So scenes, generally, there are environments. They are blue, like uh, canvases where you can build your 3D level or room or whatever. They're your starting point. You can organize scenes into different environments. So maybe you have like a beach scene that you have like a beach environment in. You could have like a city scene where you build a city environment, etc. What about a game object? Yes. Game objects are the building blocks of scenes. Anytime you want to introduce anything, whether that be a 3D model, some sort of logic, behavior, or whatever, it comes attached with a game object. So we can kind of see this in the hierarchy. If I go over, these are game objects. This is a blank scene, so not much to see here, but this is how you're going to build your game object or your scene. And components. What are components? Anybody know? Correct. Components, anytime in Unity when you want to introduce a behavior or you want something to do something, it's got to come in the form of a component. You want your character to collide with like a wall or something. You got to have a component for the collider so that like you collide with it. You want to have a player script that keeps track of the player's score or allows it to run, whatever, needs to be a component. So generally, when you're trying to figure out why something is or is not happening in Unity, you got to look for components because it's happening in some components, generally speaking. I will also. Okay. Alrighty. Now, this is the actual flowchart for how all VR sort of processing happens in Unity. I promise you, you do not need to know this by heart. But for the sake of like sort of going over like how things are brought up in Unity, it's a little bit interesting to talk about. So, and it sort of to emphasize how much like stuff you're relying on that's sort of brushed out of the way for you so you can just focus on your experience. You don't need to really focus on the details of everything, but what I do want to point out is like sort of these green, blue, and red layers and kind of dive into what they are about. And Unity, for any VR application, you have what are called provider implementations, the extra plugin framework, and developer tools. And generally speaking, these just like handle different parts of like the VR application. So in green is what you basically need to connect to a specific VR headset. If you have a Quest, you need some sort of code or app or whatever that interfaces with the Quest and actually like sends it out to the Quest so that it can be seen. Right? If you are on let's say you're running an augmented reality application and you want to build it for like an iPhone so that you can actually like see like Pokemon Go style application, whatever. You need the AR Core app implementation that basically allows it to run on an iPhone, that kind of thing. So the green is basically how do I communicate my Unity app or how do I get my Unity app to run on specific devices. The blue is basically all of the technologies Unity has in place to help you build your game so that you can just focus on building your game. So everything from handling input to handling 3D geometry to doing physics and rendering textures and etc. All that's in the blue. And finally, in red are the frameworks that are built on top of everything in Unity that are built specifically to help you build VR and AR applications easier. One of these biggest ones is called the XR Interaction Toolkit, which we will demonstrate in a bit. But it will sort of help you like conceptualize how to build a VR AR application a lot easier, so that it's more compatible with other devices and it's generally easier to develop. And as an aside, a lot of you are going to kind of be doing Quest development probably if you ever want to do VR development. So here are some useful pieces of software you might need. The Oculus app is what you're going to need on your computer if you ever want to, like, generally speaking, like get plug in your headset into your PC so that you can use your Quest with your PC while you're developing your games. The MetaQuest Developer Hub is another app that's specifically for helping deploy applications and what you build to your Quest and how you can distribute it to the Quest App Store. That's also a pretty nice essential. I use it all the time for getting, for basically publishing apps and like enabling some developer features on the Quest headsets and whatnot. It's pretty useful. Um, then there's Virtual Desktop, and this is my personal favorite for VR development because when you're doing VR development in Unity, as we'll see, you have to, it's almost imperative that like you, or it's almost like mandatory that you test your VR scene, your VR scenes and your VR whatever within Unity in what's called play mode. And as a reminder, that's basically the feature of Unity where you can sort of run your scene and like make any sort of adjustments before you like build a full product or like you build a full application. So it's really nice for debugging. You can try something out, fix it, and iterate it really quickly. But generally, if you didn't have like, if you didn't have virtual desktop or like the ability to plug in Oculus or use Oculus or whatever, you have to fully build the application every single time you want to test it out, which is far too slow. And the cool features of Virtual Desktop is that it'll let you kind of do it remotely, and it has some other convenience features that make VR development way easier. I'm going to kind of glance over those for now because this is not a workshop about Virtual Desktop, but I use it personally a lot, and I can explain to you afterwards why it's so cool. If you're interested, it does cost money, but there is a new competitor, or per se, and that's the Steam Link app. That'll basically allow you to wirelessly connect your Quest to your PC for free, and so that can also facilitate Quest developments. Oh yeah, and as we'll see today, um, so if you have a Mac, like I do right now, it is harder to build a virtual reality experience, and that is because the technical reason is we don't have a XR runtime for Mac. That is, we have no way of taking something that's running on your Mac and running it and setting it to like a Quest or something like that. For now, maybe that'll change in the future. You can do what I mentioned earlier, where you fully build the application or the game and then you deploy on the Quest. But that's like, that takes more time, right? You have to wait the 2 or 3 minutes or more to get like that built. And then once you do that, you lose the ability of play mode to like make any iterations or like changes or connect a debugger or anything. Well, you can connect a debugger afterwards, but like it's harder. So that's something, to keep in mind. You may be asking, hey, DJ, you're running a Mac today. How are you going to run this workshop? That's a great question, and that is because I'm actually going to combine remote desktop um, with virtual desktop. So I'm remote desktoping from my PC on my laptop with Parsec, and then I'm going to use virtual desktop to wirelessly stream the VR from my PC back in my apartment back to here, and effectively it works, and that's what I do a lot. So what effectively it works? Yeah, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Where are my slides? Efficiently, effectively. I don't know. I can't English. I can't read either. I don't know. Um, these slides here, they go into the very nitty gritty of building your very own VR project and then like basically from scratch and like everything you have to check for. There are a few, I'll kind of gloss over it because, you know, the project that we distributed already has this configured for you, but we're going to distribute these slides after the fact, and so that you can like try it on your own. But like basically what you download from the link, and I can also put it in the Discord really quick. Right here. I'll put it in chat. Yeah. Okay. If you would like to actually like connect a VR headset, you would need their Oculus runtime. We're also going to try to use what's called the simulator today, which doesn't technically require you to use the Oculus runtime, albeit because you're going to basically simulate a VR headset. It is kind of janky, but you probably won't be able to follow on in real time today without a VR headset. But if you do want to test it out at home, you either need that virtual desktop or Steam Link. The first thing we'll kind of go over, or like the last bit of theory, what's known as the XR Interaction Toolkit. If you take anything from today away, this is what you're going to want to, remember. In making virtual reality applications, it's kind of a challenge of like, how do you actually get things to do things, right? Like in like a regular like kind of video game, you can basically set up interactions like when I press the space bar, make the character jump. And then the character, your game character, whatever, they can have an inventory, they can select items, they can like use them and whatnot. But when you're bringing stuff into virtual reality, it's no longer like sort of an equipment system or like something that is very orchestrated for you. You yourself are now picking up objects and using them. You yourself are now like like inspecting things and like activating things and like using different items. But how do we actually set that up in like sort of a manner where it's easy to sort of develop with and like it's more intuitive? I'm kind of yapping a lot and like in this sort of abstract sense, but we'll see what I mean in a bit. But basically, Unity's solution to sort of creating interactions in your game, that is how you get your player to interact with items in your scene, anything sort of interactable, is the XR Interaction Toolkit. It basically will handle two separate tasks within a VR application, two very important tasks. One, like I said earlier, how do you actually go from your player picking up an object to using that object, right? If I pick up beats like sabers and Beat Saber, I need to be able to slice things. If I pick up a virtual flashlight in like a horror game, I need to be able to turn that flashlight on and off. If I like, what other interactions are there? If I have like a little like laser gun and like a laser tag game, how do I actually use the thing and point it and like tag somebody or whatever? All these questions are answered by the XR Interaction Toolkit. It facilitates all those sort of interactions. And the other secondary thing that the Interaction Toolkit does is that it will enable locomotion systems. Even if you have the best interaction ever, you can interact with everything great, you won't be able to move, at least unless you introduce your own implementation. And that's where the XR Interaction Toolkit also has your back. It'll provide mechanisms and systems to allow you to easily define, where your player can move and how to actually teleport them and do so in a comfortable way, right? But to do that, we need to sort of understand how like the XR Interaction Toolkit works. And I promise, like this looks kind of scary, but it's basically another sort of like graph that doesn't really matter. What matters is sort of like a really small portion of it, and that is what are known as interactors and interactables. This is the bread and butter for a lot of virtual reality applications and setting up like sort of interactions within your game or application. So in short, everything that you can use in a VR application can basically be classified as an interactor or interactable, right? Interactors are the ones initiating interaction. That is, they're the ones that are like picking up objects and then actually doing something with them. So for example, if you have like a hand controller, like something that's like, you use hand tracking to pick stuff up, that is an interactor because your hands are going to be interacting with things. So hence, it's the interactor. On the other hand, if you instead have objects in the scene that can be used, they're not necessarily like, they're not by themselves doing any interaction, but you can use them as a player, then they are interactables. So take, for example, like, let's say you have a virtual cube that you want to pick up, and every time you like shake it, it changes color. Well, that will be an interactable because the cube is the thing that you're picking up and using. And so hence like it becomes an interactable because it is something that you can interact with. On the other hand, you yourself, by some mechanism, whether it be like using your hands or using like these controllers, that is what's going to be the interactor, because that's what's sort of initiating the interaction in the scene. And besides that, in Unity, we have something called the interaction manager. It's like a game object, a component. It basically is in charge of facilitating all this. So it runs all the code needed to support this interaction to interactable, like all these sort of, all this activity. The other thing we have, in addition to interactables, is the idea of interaction states. Have any of you done web development here? A little bit? So in web development, what we can define is like maybe when the user hovers over like a button with their mouse, we can like make the button glow to show that like, hey, you're about to do something, but you haven't yet. And basically interaction states is sort of the VR/3D equivalent of that. And so we have three main ones. We have hover, select, and activate. So I see your mouse. If I do this, this is hovering. I could pick up your mouse if I wanted to. I could, but I'm not. But I'm hovering it, but I could, right? So that is the hover state. It basically will let you cause something to happen when you have the ability to interact with something, but you haven't yet. And I think in a lot of games or experiences, that ends up being like, let's say you have an item that you can use and it's sitting on the table and you want to convey to the user that you can use it. Usually this ends up being in the form of, it will start glowing, or there will be some halo around it, or some like label that pops up saying like, this is an arrow, this is a flashlight, this is a whatever. And that basically signifies that, hey, you can actually use this if you want. Then we move on to the select state. Can I use your mouse? Yeah. Okay. So let's say that I decide, you know what, I actually do want to take his mouse. Stolen, right? Now I have selected it. That is, I have picked it up and I'm actually, now this is the thing that I'm primarily interacting with. This is the select state. Basically, anytime you pick up an object, you'll select it because it is basically, that's what you're grabbing, right? And then the very last state is called the activation or the activate state. So this is basically, now that you've picked up the thing, let's use the thing, right? So thank you. Going back to this again, if I click, that would be an activation, right? So the selection was just picking up the mouse. The activation is the click. So any sort of like item or whatever that has thank you for that, like some sort of action that you can do with it, whether it be like firing a laser gun or um, a flashlight or whatever, that's the activation state. And so basically you'd be surprised at how many things you can like classify, like in terms of like VR sort of like objects and items and tools or whatever in VR that you can get to work with just these three states. Can anybody like name me anything that I can try to? Yes. So Vito VR, for those unaware, is like this like sort of fighter jet like arcadey like multiplayer game that you can basically flying simulator where you can basically fly virtual jets, fighter jets, whatnot. And inside these cockpits are a bunch of like little switches that you can use to control the jet or whatever, and like configure it. Let's say we have. Oh man, there's no good switches in this room. But you can imagine that if I have like a switch on a control panel, right? If I'm like sort of hovering my finger near the little like lever or the switch, that's in hover. And if I select it, that's me actually grabbing the switch. So, I'm about to do something with it. And if I activate it, that's me saying, okay, I want to flip its state or I want to press the button or whatever. That's activate. Yep. And basically that more or less conceptually is using this hover select activate framework. There are it doesn't always fit one for one with these states. So you can imagine like, if you have a basketball, you select the basketball, you pick it up, but how do you activate a basketball? Like, can you? I mean, maybe you have like a button on your basketball or something that I don't know. But like generally, some combination of these things can get you very far. And so to test your knowledge, I think what's coming up, good. I have a mini game. I need you to tell me whether they're interactors or interactables. All right, let's start. Laser pointer selector. Imagine I have a laser pointer that I can point at an object and I can like magically, use the force and bring it towards me, as with the many VR games, as in Resonate or in even Half-Life Alyx, kind of. And that's what Half-Life is. Huh? That is true. But for the sake of my argument and the fact I didn't think about that, let's assume that this laser pointer is attached to my hand. Is it an interactor or interactable? Good. Interactor. Yes, perhaps. Now let's move to a beach ball. You know, I I pick up the beach ball and I can throw it. Would that be an interactor or interactable? Interactable. Because the beach ball is something that can be interacted with. And so hence it's interactable. Very good. A flashlight. I use the flashlight to illuminate an area. I can turn it on and off. Interactor or interactable? Yes. But as a bonus question, which interaction state would be turning the flashlight on and off? And you've already answered enough questions, so somebody else. Huh? Very good. And okay. Only if the flashlight can interact with other interactables. Yeah. So it could. You could. It could. Like the question is like, would it be? You could definitely get it to do that. It just like an interactor has to be able to hover, select, and activate things. So the hovering could be it's within the cone of light. The selecting could be I don't know. You hit something on your interactor. You can't get it to work. You have to bend some rules. That is true. You know what? That is very true. So it could work. How about a laser gun? I'm playing laser tag, and I want to do win. So like, I need to be able to like tag my opponents or whatnot. Is a laser gun the interactor or interactable? Could be both. I see. I suppose it could be either. Well, okay. I'm thinking that it is an interactable, and I can explain why. So one thing I guess I suppose I should emphasize. Huh? Yes, but yes, that is true. Yes. So the key difference, yes, the interactors are going to interact with other interactables. That is, they're going to somehow hover, select, and like activate things, right? Probably not, because like uh typically like if you have like a multiplayer game like that, the enemy is not interactable because you would not be picking up the enemy or anything like that. Generally, probably not. Like they would like the interactable system is for things that you are going to pick up and utilize. They're tools or whatnot. They wouldn't have to be either because they're not. They're kind of aside from everything. Sure. Yes. Those are like. But oh, good question, guys. Um, it is a lot of like design preferences, but basically the rule of thumb I would apply is that if I intend, generally interactors are things that the player, is going to be directly utilizing in some way to pick stuff up, right? So whether that be a hand, well, I guess I'm spoiling it, a hand controller or like a laser pointer selector where you basically have a laser pointer that extends out of your controller and you can like grab things at a distance or whatever. Those are interactables because you're going to, with those interactors, you're going to be initiating interactions with other interactables. Holy crap! The amount of times I'm saying interactable, I'm going to some whatever. Um, it's not going to be a word anymore. No. Yes. Okay. Thank you. I'll take one. Huh? Oh, that's awesome. My TA brought us Skittles this morning. They're great. Yep. That makes sense. Okay. Oof. I was going to have a caramel apple last night, and then, huh? I mean, they're dipped in white chocolate, so that's enough for me. I like the ones that, yeah, Wednesday night. Yes, but I was doing an assignment that I definitely didn't put off to the last minute last night. Um, but I digress. So now everybody has their candy. Thank you for that. Much appreciated. Um, so you all raised a really good point about like what exactly when do you make something interactable? Because generally speaking, not everything you're seeing is going to be an interactable, even though it might seem like it might be. And I can kind of explain a bit more why. Let's say kind of we can go back to like a zombie shooter example or whatever. Why isn't the zombie an interactable? Well, because it's not really a like a tool or something that you use. It's something kind of different that like it's like some like it's like a target or like something that you're shoot like you're shooting at or you're working against, and it doesn't really fit well under the interactable framework because it's not something that you're utilizing per se. It's not a tool. And so when you go to fire like a gun interactable or whatever, when it actually shoots with the activate state, you're probably going to want to rely on some other set of logic to handle that sort of thing. So interactors and interactables are basically the best for like sort of item based or tool based interactions. And then everything else is kind of like a bit different. I am not explaining it with enough like detail right now, I realize. And because, it's kind of like that is a really good question. I have to kind of think about how to explain like an intuitive sense, but it is, a very good insight that you all have. So well done, bravo! You broke my game. um, the last thing I'll mention in Unity um, is that anytime you introduce something VR related into your scene, you have this sort of hierarchy, and so this is what it's called, like the XR rig, and this is basically how you represent a virtual reality player within a Unity scene. So it basically starts off with this root game object called the XR origin. This is basically, as the name implies, the origin of where the player is in your Unity scene. Moving the XR origin moves where the player is in your scene. Pretty simple. Yeah. No. By the way, any questions? Because I realize I'm kind of yeah, sure. So this whole thing is called the XR rig, and it's how we represent a virtual reality player in Unity using these frameworks. The XR origin is the topmost game object. It's like the parent of everything. It's like a little like sort of modal, if you were like, I don't know how you want to describe that. But moving this will move your whole player. So you can imagine if you want to teleport the player, you take the origin and then you move it somewhere else. What's also sort of interesting to note is that this origin doesn't necessarily signify or specify where your player is currently located. It is sort of the origin of their coordinate space. Now, what the hell does that mean? So imagine I create a play space right here, a stationary one, and I have this sort of, you know, little square around me, this circle. The origin is like the center of my play space. And I can move around my play space, but I'm not moving my origin. I'm moving myself, right? It's sort of like this little coordinate space I made it, you know, for my room or for my environment or my play space. The origin is where like the center of that is. And so when you move the origin, that's what you're actually moving. You're moving the origin of your play space. Not necessarily the player directly, but indirectly you do move the player because, well, the player is part of that space. I could draw this out on the board if need be. Does anybody want me to do that? Maybe no? Okay. The camera offset is basically another game object that's basically helps to adjust the height of the player or whatnot. Uh, Typically, you don't have to worry about this. It's just there for some reason. But basically, if you have to adjust the player height ever, like maybe um, you need to move it up or down for whatever reason, you can use this game object. But I don't ever really use it, so I'm going to glance over it. But here's finally this green layer here. This is the game objects that actually represent where the controller, where the left and right controllers are, where your headset is. There's three game objects here. You have one for your VR headset. So basically one game object is constantly updated to match where your head is, right? And you have a game object for your left and right controller, which constantly track where your controllers are, right? For hand tracking, if you ever use your hands, it's a similar setup. And instead of the controllers, they will represent your hands. So pretty theoretically simple, but we'll see more in action. All right. Finally, we're going to try to build our own game. Put all this theory into practice. So we're going to make a clone of Bone Lab. Oh my goodness, I get it. Right? This super high fidelity game. It's super awesome, super fun, right? Today, wait, shoot. I can't present a slide. Okay. So that's the original. And we're we're gonna be doing the Netflix adaptation. So, you know, um, I worked very hard on that, by the way. I'll just sort of emphasize that. Okay, so we're gonna open the Bear project. This is what I put the link in the other chat. Uh, where's you? Right here. Oh my gosh, not like that. I don't know how to Mac. Oh, that's awful. Okay. What? It should be in the general chat. That's a great question. I don't know. And then I think it will be located in the game scene. Yes. And let me make sure that, yes, okay. So this is sort of our empty scene. And basically, I forget if I have like a working video of this, but the little game I want to make is that I want to have a bunch of these crabs sort of spawn around in a circle around me, and I want them to chase me, and they jump up, and then like, if they get me, I lose some health. But otherwise, to combat that, I have like a little gun that I can use to fire back at them. Pretty simple. So with this empty scene so far, let's see what happens if I kind of hit play. No VR headset yet, but we'll see kind of what happens. And I forgot that it's going to turn on my Beyond remotely and not my Quest. So give me 1 second to fix that. Oh my goodness, it's launching my Steam and everything. Femur Arena. It's a nice play on words, right? Um, but it's like, it's not quite. Uh, you have to give me a second. While this takes an eternity, any questions? How do you open the project? Great question. Once you've downloaded it, in Unity Hub, you can go to Add, and then there's this little selection here called Add Project from Disk. And once you're there, you can basically go and you can find um, the folder that you downloaded or whatever, and then you open it, and then it should pop up there. And then once you have it in this list, you can just click on it, it should launch. Right? Yes, you do. That is a good question. Also, unfortunately, I have to take the horns off because otherwise it is going to be impossible for me to use a virtual reality headset. I know. I did try. It didn't go so well. And this probably looks how horrendous does this look? Yes. Can I do the head flip? Yes, hold up. Let me just like Tom Hiddleston every time he's just like that made me a little dizzy actually. Huh? Oh yeah. The problem is that this wig goes off to the side and not really like to the back, more like Tom Hiddleston slash Loki's hair. So I think sometimes it just makes me look like an angry Karen more so than Loki, but with the horns, it kind of brushes the hair back. Yes. You can open it in a newer version. It doesn't really matter. Okay. Um, give me one quick second because I am going to basically pair up um, this headset so that I can use it for my demo. Um, and connecting this to Eduroam will be fun. So yeah, feel free to use this time. I don't know. Get the project installed, take a little breather or whatever while I like connect this to the internet real quick. Uh, oh, right. It uses this thing. Putting in my password. T. Please work. Yeah. Then nope, I wanted to use virtual desktop. Turn that down. There we go. And I can go here and go here. Where, where is this here? Um, here. Finally. Okay. So at long last, I have launched the thing. So as you can see, I have my basic setup. I have these controllers. That's teleportation, which we'll get to in a second. But you know, the one small problem is that there are no enemies, and I can't pick up this gun. So what gives? Well, perhaps unsurprisingly, this is our starting point. Our goal now is to add some features into here that are going to make it, actually do something. All right. A second. Uh, yeah. Um. Okay. So our gun. Uh, the first problem is right now it's not interactable, right? It should be because we should be able to hover it, select it, fire it, whatever, but it's currently not. And without it being an interactable, we're not going to get anywhere. So our first step is we're going to use something called the XR grab interactable component. This is one of the principal interactable types you'll use in your applications or games. It's very versatile. You can get it to do a lot of things. So we're just basically going to add this component to our gun. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, right. Okay. I hate long hair. I don't know how. Or maybe I hate this wig. I don't know. Um, so gun. Yeah. So all we're gonna do, if I remember my instructions correctly, we're just gonna come down here, hit add component. Wow, look at that. It's already there. Actually don't even know how. Grab interactable, and boom. That's it. We're game developers now. And now if all right, so let's see how let's see how that changes things. So I hit play. Oh my lord. Um, well, let me try that again. It is your friend. Actually, I don't even know if I did that. Uh, okay, that is actually good. Ah, no, all of my hard game developer work is out the door. How am I ever going to succeed? Yeah, I do actually kind of know the reason for this. Um, I think this is using an old version of the OpenXR plugin, which for whatever reason crashes a lot with virtual desktop. So I'm just going to go update that really quick. Uh, so this is like 1.8.2, and then the newest one is like 1.13. So I'm just kind of what I'm doing now is I open the package manager. So I go to Window, package manager. I'm gonna hit add by name, paste this in. I'm just gonna read that. Nope, not that. Copy this, paste this in here. I'm gonna go with the latest version or not. Will it update? I don't know. Let's see. Oh, there you go. 1.13. This was just released like a month ago, so hopefully a more up-to-date version will prevent it from crashing so much. Okay, gonna try that again. I'm kind of hand waving or over a lot of steps here, but basically what I'm doing here is like making it so that I can connect virtual desktop to my Unity game or whatever. Um, once again, if you're interested in how to do that or how that helps out, I can like tell you afterwards. But basically, that's all the steps I'm doing. That's not necessarily strictly required to get the game run. So without further ado, let me verify that I set OpenXR to virtual desktop already. And now let's get back to the show. Do not interact with the desktop, please. Don't do that. Okay, cool. I hit play now. Finger. Oh wait, did it actually save? It did. Okay, cool. I guess we could have tested to find out. Okay, hit play. Don't you love game development, guys? No. And Murphy's law really comes to bite you. Okay, all things considered, that relaunched pretty quickly. So okay, here. Well, I really hope that does. All right, once more. Yay. Okay. Yes, I did. So now, where did it go? Oh, it went all the way over here. Okay. Uh, yeah. Yeah. Let me fix that real quick. There you go. Fun fact. So we can pick up our gun now that it's interactable. Yay! But it's not actually firing anything. It's kind of pathetic. Okay. So how do we fix that? Um, Before we do that, on the subject of maximizing things, fun Unity pro tip: if you double click a tab like this, it will switch it from being in normal size and then like fully expanded. So you can do that with any tab, the game tab, animations, scene, etc. There's some fun Unity trivia for you. Alrighty. Um, you know, the problem is that we've added our interactable, but we haven't actually told the interactable to do anything at all when it's interacted with. And how can we fix that? Well, the Grab interactable has these really nice little what are called Unity events that are sort of just plug and play logic and call things. So what we want to do is basically for our select and activate states, we want to play a sound of like I'm equipping it, and then actually want to fire the gun if I do activate it. So how you define this is through Unity events, and if you haven't worked for them before, they basically allow you to sequence like other you can sequence like actions and things to do upon like the event happening. So if you kind of read this like English, when select is entered or when you select something, do these two things. And so from top to bottom, what it is load the pickup sound into the audio source or like the component that will play audio, and play that sound. So basically put in the sound effect of the pickup sound and then play it. So it effectively just plays the sound. Right? On the other hand, when we deselect, or we exit select, that is, we are dropping the gun. Then what we're going to do is we're going to load in the release sound effect, and then play that. So we have sort of a, like the sound of it kind of going away, or like you're dropping it or whatever. And last but not least, for when we activate, what we want to do is we want to load the sound of a gunshot, play it, and then actually call the fire. function or method or whatever on our gun component, which will actually, do the firing. So let's quickly configure that. Also, as an aside, um, you know how I say to you specifically, you know how I was saying like VR chat animations, it's like doing all this like wacky, um, like crazy stuff to do like the simplest of things. This is what I mean by that. Because like effectively, through this, when you have like full control over the Unity project, you directly call the action that you want a lot of the time. So no need for trying to figure out how to wrangle the animation graph to do something. Go ahead and do that because that is like an art in and of itself. I'm just saying, like generally speaking, huh? You should see how bad it gets. I'm kind of on your side, but it's okay, guys. It's just the joy of game development. We love it so much. No, whatever. We could. I could be Cliff, and we could like go over like finite state automata or whatever the heck it's called. Wow. Have you gotten to your CFG? I wouldn't blame you. Uh, any. But anyways, what I'm doing here, really, because I know I'm not speaking. So with these Unity events, if you want to like add something to the list of things that will happen, you hit this little plus button, and that basically allow you to specify a game object, and then you can then specify, something to do with it. So what I'm doing is I'm dragging my gun because I want my gun to do something, and you can see that this drop-down list matches all the components that are on the game object, like the transform, the gun component, rigid body, whatever. And what you could do is like from this list, this basically allows you to specify all the properties that you can modify some of these properties, or you can like do actions like by calling a function or a method on like the component. So for example, let's say there's like this mute property of the audio source. Here I can toggle it on or off, which is to say like, when I have it like this, when activated, set audio source mute to false because it's not checked. Were I to check it, it would basically now mean when activated, set audio source mute to muted. And basically, here's how you can sort of chain this logic together, and everything's executed start to like first to last. So to reiterate, when the select is entered, we set the clip to the pickup sound, and then we hit play. When we exit, we set it to the release sound, and we hit play. And then lastly, when we activate, we do the gunshot sound, and then we hit play. So do I have sound? I think I do. Oh no. Uh, I'm just gonna really hope it works. Sound on. Need to go here, make sure that sound is set to both. And well, we'll see what happens. Also do this so you can see computers. Why connect to Wi-Fi. Please. Yeah, okay, that works. And last but not least. All right, let's see what this does now. All right, I can pick it up and it doesn't do anything. Let me make sure that like this is what? No. This The sounds are at least playing, but it's still not working. So what gives? What? Oh, okay, good. Um, so I'm gonna hope that I had intentionally made this fail. Okay, good. I was worried. Okay, so we did set up the sound effects correctly, um, but we didn't yet actually. We don't have any code to make the gun fire, so we're gonna quickly do that really quick. It's not so bad, but it does need to be done. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything. So let's go to our gun component again. We're going to come up here and we're going to hit edit script, which will allow us to sort of edit the code. All right. All righty. Oh my, what? Okay. I do not want magnifier. Here we go. So as you can see, we have this function or method called fire, but we only have commas within. So effectively, it doesn't do anything, which kind of sucks. What I'm going to do really quickly is I'm going to pull up the reference material so that I know how, that I'm coding this correctly. Um, but basically, the three-step process is that we are going to create a bullet in the gun. We're going to add a force to it so that it actually goes out and does something, or it can actually hit something. And then we are going to start what's known as a coroutine, which is basically like a timer or like some timed event that basically will say, you know, if the gun hasn't hit anything after a while, just destroy it because we don't really want luck to accumulate a whole pile of bullets that have gone astray or whatever. We want to just sort of get rid of it after some seconds, amount of seconds if it hasn't already. So I'm going to quickly go here and I'm going to look at the this branch, go here. All right. Let's see. Um, oh wow. Hmm. Well, it turns out I don't actually have the reference code, so we're gonna do it together. All right. So, does anybody know how to create something in Unity programmatically? Good. We're going to instantiate a bullet. So we're going to use our instantiate function. Um, and let's see. So what I noticed that this component has is that we have a bullet prefab, which is probably, you know, that does sound useful. It's going to represent the actual bullet that we want to fire. We have some amount of force that we can apply to it, a parameter for how much time we want to give it before we obliterate it, and then we have something called fire transform, which is basically like you know, where are we going to fire the bullet out of, more or less. So I'm going to say I want to instantiate my bullet prefab. I want to have it start from the fire transform. And I want it to have an initial position of 0. That is, if the fire transform is the center, basically, it represents where on the gun we're going to fire the bullet from. I want it to start at the center of that. That is, you know, it starts right from where it's supposed to go. And let's see, I think I also need to specify a rotation, and I probably have these in the wrong order. Do I need this? What's the signature here? Vector 3 0. Transform. Returning. This is the right thing to call. I just forget which order in which you called them. Oh, okay. This goes at the end. There we go. Okay. What this is basically saying is oh, I'm going to scroll that up so you can actually see it. We are going to create a bullet from our bullet prefab, a copy of it. We're going to spawn it at the center or the origin. We're going to give it the default rotation. And then we are going to parent it under the fire transform. So I can show this in Unity to kind of have it make more sense. In our gun prefab, we have this game object here called fire. And this is basically, if I go to the gun itself, by double clicking, hello. Thank you, actually. You can see here is that this transform represents like, exactly where it should fire out of, right? It's firing at the front, so we want to do that. Now that we have our bullet, we want to actually, fire it. And we'll notice here that this sort of bullet prefab is of a type of rigid body. And rigid bodies are physical things in Unity that we can add forces to. So all we have to do here is we have to just add a force to this rigid body to make it go pew. Pretty simple. Does anybody know off the top of your head, it's trivia, I wouldn't expect you to remember it, how we add a force to this, the method that we use? If not, I'll just do it because it doesn't really matter. But it's actually not so bad. It is just called add relative force. We have to, you'll notice that we have two different things we can call. We can call add force and add relative force. But we have to use add relative force because add force will apply the force in sort of world space or global coordinates. That is to say, depending on how the gun is oriented, affects how the bullet will receive the force because it's applying in like sort of world space. But when we add relative force, that means that we are sort of applying the force in this local coordinate system where it's always predictable, and it doesn't matter how we orient the gun. It like fires it, like it applies the force based on wherever this blue vector is pointing. Alrighty, so here I believe we can say vector3 dot forward times bullet force. I think we want to set this to I think it's impulse. I think that's what we want. Yeah, we do want impulse because basically we're going to give it an I think if it's force, the problem is that it's going to expect that force is applied continuously. So it's going to start applying, it will basically, if you imagine like I think kind of like the force graph, it'll apply instantly like 10 newtons of force, whatever, and it'll go down and it won't actually accelerate anywhere. I, I'm not a physics guy, but I'm pretty sure it's impulse. But basically, we'll see. Oh, well, I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's either impulse or force. And then basically here, the last step is we're going to use a coroutine. We have this convenient one right here that's just basically called destroy after time. And all it does is we provide it something to destroy. So in this case, we want to destroy a bullet, and then we want to do it after time before destroying bullet seconds. So I know I kind of like, oh, here, I have to set the metrics. Okay. I know I kind of went through a lot, so let's break it down really quickly. So the first line is we make the bullet. We take our bullet prefab, our copy, our blueprint, and then we make it, and we put it under the fire transform, which in Unity is where we said we wanted it to actually spawn out of the gun from. Then we are going to add a force to it, which this thing may or may not work, we'll see. But basically the idea is we apply a forward force on it, and we multiply it by the amount of force we want on the bullet. So this bullet force thing here, this is just a variable with a number on it. Right now it's just set to 10. But you can imagine that when we multiply 10 by this forward vector, it will like add 10 times more forward force to it. So it's like a little bit of vector math, but you can, if I kind of draw out like an example here, the forward vector looks like this, 0, 0, 1, because you're not adding any X or left to right motion. You're not adding any up or down or Y motion, but you are adding some forward motion in like the Z component, the direction. So if we multiply this whole thing by 10, that is we're doing 0 times 10, 0 times 10, 1 times 10, then that gives us 0, 0, 10. So a force that is 10 times as strong. That makes sense? Pretty straightforward. All right, let's see what happens. I have no idea. Virtual desktop has really funky. Oh, I don't know how to actually turn it off. Here we go. All right. All right. Let's give it a shot. I'm going to hit play. Now if I fire it, well, it's still not working. So let's see what happened. I might not have. I didn't make any errors. Did I save it? Um, no, it does have everything. Did I call it properly? I did. I don't know. Let's give it another shot. And we'll watch the scene this time. Hopefully. Fire. Where'd it go? Oh. Hmm. Oh, let me fix that. It is creating it, but it might be okay, so it may not be impulse because basically I think as soon as I fire it, it's going like a whole kilometer in a second. So lo and behold, I do not know physics. So I'm just gonna take this out. Uh let's try that again. Maybe. Let's see if this is better. Uh what is this like now? A very small amount of mass because they are firing, but it's also like uh they're going ridiculously far. So how about instead, I think I had it in the code as 10. It's set to 75. So I'm gonna turn that down a bit. Maybe in a previous workshop I was just like, guys, for shits and giggles, what if we set it like through the roof? Okay. I don't see it. Um it is slower now. How about like I just turn this force all the way down to like just one? Let's see. How about them apples? Um if I add a very little itty bitty force. Uh, that is curious. Hmm. Bullet? No, it's still here. Interesting. Does. I think that is might be the way. So I checked my console for errors. You don't have any errors. Get my controller. The thing is, I don't even see, which is kind of weird. What if I instead say I just don't want any bullet force whatsoever, just nothing at all? So it should just kind of drop to the ground. I think I might have my coordinates wrong or something. So if I go and look at the code again, it should be. Uh, it should be relative to the. Oh, that is a good question. I could be. Ah, this would be a change of how my understanding of this is. Let's see if that's the case. So instead of doing that, I'm going to manually say that its local position is at 0 and has like default rotation. Maybe onto something. Let's see if that works. I'm really hoping you're right. Um, oh, I saw, wait, I see the shadow. Oh, you're very right. Yeah. So I think the last thing we have to do is I don't have the scale down, do I? Oh, it might be ginormous. Interesting. So basically, I think we do have to set its scale again because otherwise we won't be able to see it. So I'm kind of hand wave here for a second. Transform that local scale. And we're gonna go back into Unity. All right, let's try that. Hmm, very peculiar. I'm gonna see really quick if I can't locate what it should. It should be uh something like this. Let's see. Details. Go here. Interesting. Um, I am calling that one. So it puts the parent. Is that for interesting? We shouldn't have to call it, but yeah, we shouldn't have to call it, but that is kind of weird. Let's try it, or maybe because maybe it is working, and I just am applying it too fast. Oh my goodness. It is kinda. Did I move the fire thing by mistake? No, it is going out. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's in local space. Maybe I'm fine. Maybe the oh, I didn't put in the force here. Sorry about. Oh, I see what I did. Whoops. Okay. I am moving where the gun should shoot out of instead of moving the bullet. Whoopsie daisies. Okay, I am so sorry about that. That took way too long to find that. Game development, guys. All right, let's try it one more time. 17th time is a charm. Yeah, probably. I prematurely said that I had found the issue. Uh, oh, wait, okay. It is going, albeit extremely small. Yeah, so I'm also going to put this. Oh, the last thing I'll do is like, let's reset the scale. Is either will make ginormous bullets or it won't. Okay, here we go. Get my controller. I don't know. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's huge. I don't actually know why. No, yeah. Uh, oh, let's see. I can kind of do this. Oh, I think the reason why you get that weird effect is because it's like the parent of it is like scaled in this weird way. So if I kind of go here, set this instead back to one, one, one. Let's try that. I kind of move this around. When I publish this later, I will fix it. I've done this workshop twice. I'm kind of surprised that we haven't run into this issue before. Let's try that one more time. My Quest disconnects for a second. Yes, I am me. Okay, phew. Okay, so now they're firing again, and all we have to do is bring up that force a little bit more. So if the gun is adding no force, so let's bring it up to like 50 and go back to the game mode. Well, and actually I have to apply it here as well. Oh, it is in. I might have to, yeah. Um, gun 50. Virtual. We will move on to the next slide after this because we are running low on time, but hopefully interesting. That's kind of a bummer. I don't know why it's kind of acting up a little bit, but oh wait, maybe it's because I changed the mass to be way more. I made 10 kilogram bullets. Okay, all right. We believe. Okay, it is shooting. I don't know if you can see that. It's strangely going at this weird like trajectory, which I don't even know how it's doing that, but for the sake of time, we're gonna kind of brush past that for now. Okay. Um, the next issue with the game was that like we didn't have a teleportation system, but I think this project actually comes with it by default. And basically, to add teleportation, all we have to do is add a teleportation area component. So we have one right here, and that basically marks the surface as you can teleport anywhere on it. So long as we point our laser pointer somewhere on the surface, it'll teleport just fine. Um, so we can kind of go over that for now. But we don't have enemies, and we kind of need them because otherwise we have nothing to play against. And this actually, yeah. So to get some enemies, we're going to edit the Femur Arena class or component. And basically here, we have this sort of piece of code here that we basically need to spawn the crabs and like have them start approaching the people. So first, in our start method, what I'm going to do is I need to actually call our spawn coroutine, which is going to spawn like the crabs every so often or every few seconds. So I'm going to simply type start coroutine spawn coroutine. And this is basically going to, it's going to kick off our coroutine, which is going to go in this loop where we're going to do this little like procedure here. We're going to wait for some time, and then we're going to spawn another crab. So this sort of kicks off this process off. It calls this, and then we start spawning crabs. Now, in this four-step procedure, we need to figure out where the crab should go, how it should be rotated, and then we need to actually like have it target the player. So for the first step, I'm going to say the spawn position is going to be equal to the spawn transforms dot position. So the position of where the spawn is, plus somewhere along the spawn radius, and we're going to say random dot vector or quaternion dot uh, angle axis math f dot random, or sorry, random. Whoopsies. Random dot range 0 to 360 degrees, and then we're going to apply that like this. Whoopsies. Forward. Vector 3 up. Okay. So what I typed out here, it's a little bit of maybe a complicated looking statement, but it actually isn't so bad. What it is that what we do is we take the wherever the spawn we put is located, its position, and then what we're going to do is we're going to given some spawn radius, this is like how far away should they spawn from the spawn, how far away should they appear from the spawn. We're going to multiply that by a vector, like the forward vector that is randomly rotated from 0 to 360 degrees. So this doesn't really make a lot much sense in code. So if we kind of type it out, what I'm basically doing is this red point here represents the spawn transform where it's located. And we have a forward direction that kind of points forward in this way. However, if we spawned all the enemies here, then it'd be kind of boring. We want them to spawn randomly around the circle. So what I'm doing is I'm doing this quaternion.angle axis random rate 0 to 360 vector 3 up times vector 3 forward. What the hell does that mean? That's a great question. We are basically going to rotate this vector across like the up axis. We're going to spin it around like you can imagine if it was like a pole running like from the floor into the ceiling. We're going to spin the forward direction around that. So therefore, instead of going forward, the forward direction might end up randomly here or there in any sort of direction. But it's basically to pick a random point across the circle to kind of spawn them from. Then, once we know where the vector up, so when you want to rotate a vector in 3D or like a direction, like if I kind of draw my coordinate system here, like kind of like this. So if I want to turn this purple vector here that's sort of like lying on the floor and I want to rotate it like maybe so that it's now facing like this way, to get it to kind of do this like swiveling or this rotation, I need to rotate, not only specify an angle, but I need to specify the axis around which we're rotating. So when I say vector 3 up, it is specifying that, you know, around this up axis, we're going to be rotating it like some amount of degrees. So there's your theta. And because I want it to spawn anywhere across the circle, I'm specifying 360 degrees, which will, you know, spawn it anywhere across the circle. So I apologize because I'm going to try to quickly code this up so that we can, I know it's like 6 o'clock and you might have other plans, so I'm going to try to quickly go through this. But the next thing I want to do is once we know where to spawn the crab, we need to like point it in the right direction. Because the crab, you know, it may spawn like, even though we know where to put it along the circle, if it's always facing the forward direction, it might not always face the player. So you can see like if it's always sort of facing forward when it starts off, like depending on where it is around the circle, it won't, you know, look in the right direction. But it turns out that we can really easily change this by rotating the crab with what's called a look rotation. And this basically says, you know, where should the crab face? Well, we know that the crab is going to spawn some point along the circle, and we want it to face inwards towards the player. So in terms of math, what we need to do is that we need to figure out the direction from the crab to the center of the circle, which we can basically do by subtracting the uh, like where it ended up from the beginning. But the cool thing is we are actually already kind of calculated where this should be. So I can say, I can take this and make it some direction. So I'm going to take this right here and make this its own variable. Spawn direction. Yeah, we might have gotten rid of a parenthesis. The extra parenthesis here. And we can actually do basically this operation called spawn direction, negative spawn direction to normalize. So this, the sleight of hand I did here is that we know to spawn the crab along the circle, we have to go from the center and we move it some direction out. And now it's facing this, like that's the motion we did. We took it from the center and we pushed it outwards like this. But we want the crab to face the center of the circle. So instead, but we already calculated how to get it out to, like, we already calculated the direction it should go to get to the point on the circle. So all we have to do to make it face the center is we take this direction that we've calculated, we reverse it like this, and then we do what's called a normalize operation. So right now, usually when we deal with rotations, we want our vectors or our directions to be of length 1. Right now, this is of length like more than 1 or 10. So doing dot normalize will instead make it so that the vectors instead of length 1. So like this is sort of, you can imagine length 1. But this basically will get it to face in the right direction. Again, I apologize because I know we are kind of running low over time. So I'm just going to type this out. The crab prefab, we're going to give it the spawn position, the spawn rotation, and the spawn, I think I called it transfer. There you go. And then lastly, there's a property on the crab called target, which is basically like what the crab should actually target. Luckily, we already have this provided to us in the form of this target transform. So all I have to say is target crab to target transform. And this basically informs the crab script, okay, follow this thing here, like move towards wherever this transform is. And let's see. Here, if I go to the femur the target transform is set to the main camera of our XR rig. So basically, because the main camera represents your head, or the position of virtual reality headset, that means that this crab is always going to be targeting your head. So let's see if that works. It might not, which would kind of break my heart. But it could also be. Let's see. So it is a little janky, but it should at the very least uh, be they are spawning. They're not spawning far enough as they should be. Yeah, so I'm gonna try to instead do crab dot transform dot local position equals spawn position. I did change the Unity version during this, and I that usually doesn't break things, but I could have broken something in this regard. But we'll kind of see. Spawn position. Oh, what did you just do? Okay. One mistake I made was I set the spawn position equal to its world space position plus the direction. But because I'm specifying like the crab position here in local space, I can actually just specify this direction because it already has. It's just purely like this sort of arrow here, so that should fix that. Uh, okay. Let's see how this fares. Okay, good. They are approaching me. But the problem is that well, I can't actually do anything against them, and they're just sort of piling up on me. So not good. So the last sort of part of this workshop is to uh well, add some behavior to the crabs so that like they actually will, get hit by the bullet and, go away. But yes, it is being wonky. Yes, we did get it. It is wonky.